Hi everyone and welcome back to the channel. Another week has passed and another reset. And of course we are still back on the Protection Paladin opening up our vault. And unfortunately a kind of boring one at this. I ended up taking this chest tier set, which is just an eye level upgrade, and then also I went up and used my token from getting 2000 score from last season, putting us at 502 now, and also just equipping our 4 set. And then of course, you know, since this is Incorporeal week, make sure to change your talents around so you can actually fix the affix. And that's one of the great things about playing Protection Paladin. Something I really have enjoyed is that I basically have an answer for everything, or like at least every affix. But I mean, with all that out of the way, there's nothing else to continue pushing, right? And let me tell you, this week has been one of the most random ass weeks that I've ever played. Because with my very first key, I found out that all of them here are Danish, and spoiler alert, I'm Danish too. So we kind of like just hit it off, right? Going into this +6 Brackenhide. And you know what's really funny is last video I spent almost all the time just bitching about how pucks are just, you know, really driving me crazy, and how I just was overall enjoying the season and having fun, but like playing with pucks and playing with this unpredictability or like unpredictable nature that pucks like bring in. These guys that I'm playing with right now actually ended up inviting me to their Discord, and we actually been playing a lot of keys together, so I guess I just randomly joined a pre-made group. If you've only played World of Warcraft solo, you have no understanding like how different the game is when you actually can communicate with the people that you're playing with. Now this is far from like my first pre-made group. Like, you know, I also just had, you know, friends that I know from real life that, you know, every time an expansion comes out, everyone comes back and we just have a whole group, and then, you know, by the time season 1 is done, most or like all of them has like quit the game, and then, you know, I'm back to being like all me alone again, right? But the great thing about playing with premates, because, you know, you can definitely have like people in your group that's like still are not, just because you have like premade group doesn't necessarily mean that people are just gonna play perfectly. People are still gonna make mistakes. People are still gonna make the mistakes that you're gonna see in pucks. But the difference is here that, you know, the mistakes are gonna be less, it's gonna be more predictable. And that's simply because, like, you know, every player has their own flaws and mistakes. My biggest mistake is basically just, you know, that I can get completely overwhelmed. If too many things is happening, my brain will just like, you know, kind of just like have a short fuse and just completely stop everything, and freeze up. Like, that's my own personal mistake. And knowing these mistakes about, you know, the players that you're playing with makes it like such an incredible, like, fun task as a tank to like puzzle out and figure out exactly where you can push the group and where you also need to, like, you know, respect the players that you're actually playing with. I mean, and then of course you just have to like straight up just communication, right? Like, it's just a game changer that you can just tell the people that, oh, can someone take care of this Incorporeal? Or you can also just scream out, hey, I have kicks for like all of these like mobs, right? And then like people can just like have to do it. You don't have to guess if someone has kick up or if someone's gonna take it or like whatever's going on. You can just clearly communicate it. And not only does this make the game so much more fun, it just also makes it kind of playable. And by that I actually mean the fact that playing like really high keys, and here I mean anything above, in my own personal experience, I have been like stopped off, like cut off around the 23s, 24s, maybe even 25s. And for me that's been the cutoff simply because like it is playable, like you can pocket. It's just that the pugging experience is so miserable, not because people are toxic or anything, it's just because you honestly can make so few mistakes. And since you can't communicate with your team, and since you can't coordinate like who's like doing what kicks and who's like taking care of what, mistakes are just naturally going to happen. Meaning that, like, for my own personal experience, my success rate went from like, you know, doing 20s and 21s, 22s, being around like 70 or 80%, you know, I would go in and time a key, to something like 30 or 40%, right? Like it's and like the experience is just so miserable because what it is that you plan your time and you spend a lot of time to get to a certain point. It could be 10 minutes, 15 minutes, or 25 minutes into a dungeon before you hit a wall, and there's just nothing you can do, and you just have to like quit. And that's why I have always just accepted the fact that like my like pugging journeys is always like getting to that point where like Mythic Plus just becomes too miserable to play for me, and then I just switch over to alts for the rest of the season. So I mean, I'm just also saying this, like if you are watching this and you're thinking to yourself that like, oh, pugging experience is the worst, I would really highly recommend, you know, finding people that you enjoy playing with. And of course you're gonna ask like, well, yeah, that's but like not everyone is like as lucky as you are. Like not everyone is just gonna find the very first group of the week. They're not just gonna find a group of people all from the same country and like all like vibing, right? And that's absolutely true. And to be honest, like no one's gonna be lucky in the first time. Like as I said before, this is not my first rodeo. Yeah, I had like in real life friends, but I've also like been through multiple guilds trying to find people who not only do you vibe with, but also just, you know, you're trying like to coordinate, like actually being able to play together. That's also like a huge struggle sometimes. But I think the biggest thing here, because there's like 1,000 small steps to do, like how to find a guild and like how to be social and stuff like that. But basically what it is that you first need to work on is just basically make yourself available. People are not gonna invite you to your group if you are not the one who's like chatting and like talking to people and being social. And if you don't showcase yourself as being available, then, you know, no one's gonna invite you to your group, basically. And what it basically just boils down to is like, if you enjoy playing with someone, like in your pugging experience and in a key and stuff like that, whisper them if they want to play more. Honestly, a huge amount of time people would say yes. I have had moments where people like, you know, declined it and be like, I actually can't, I have to go now. But then they hit me up with like, oh, you send me a friend request and like I'm on tomorrow or like something like that. And if you want to keep WoW a solo game, there's nothing wrong with that. I just really think you should be aware of what you're signing yourself up to and just also how big of a difference playing in a pre-made group is. Now, the keys you're actually watching right now is actually not a full pre-made. I think it's only like 2 of the guys and then the rest is pucks. And we are actually gonna push into like really, I was gonna say really hard keys. I'm actually feeling really comfortable around this level, being pushing, but we actually going to wipe to this because the afflicted here is just gonna like, I'm sorry, the incorporeal is just gonna go off, unfortunately, which is, yeah, really a bummer. But we have still like great time, so we can definitely like wipe here and then go again and still be in time. But we go again and we get her this time. And honestly, playing the Paladins this week has been like incredible. I've really been enjoying this spec. As I mentioned in the beginning of the video, you have a tool for like everything. And you have so many kicks and stops, and you can help the healer, you know, you have like lay of hand, you know, you can instantly bring people up to life. You have sacrifice that I've also just been using a lot more now that the bosses are actually like really hitting hard. And also I just feel like much more comfortable on the Paladin than I did in the beginning of the season. Now that's also to do with like me being undergeared and also just, you know, bad at using my concentration and defensive and stuff like that. But with the new like the bullions and like stuff like that, I actually been I purchased 2 trinkets. The first one being the biggest upgrade which is like Ferox Rage Heart, which just gives you a huge absorb shield and then also just like makes you like pulls out damage to every like enemy near you. And oh man, this trinket is my bread and butter. It's absolutely amazing. I've so much missed an absorb shield, and just having that extra on the Paladin, even though the Paladin has a bunch of like defensive utilities, I always kind of felt like they were on the a little bit on the weaker side of other tanks. So you have more but a little bit less. I mean, you do have your kings, which is like 50% damage reductions, but it also has like a pretty large cooldown reduction. I mean, just cooldown, but yeah, you do have cooldown reduction on it. But it has definitely made all these tyrannical bosses so much easier because it's like on such a short cooldown, and then the damage is also really great just to have. And then I also have took up the trinket All Totem of the Master, which where every single time I parry, I unleash like a elemental counterattack, and it can be like 4 different ones. It can give me armor, it can just do like a bunch of damage, it can do a bunch of stuff. And you know, it has a 30-second cooldown in it, like in built into it, so I can't just like parry every like counterattack every single time, because as the Paladin, like, you know, I am parrying almost every single time. So this cooldown, like this trinket is like, you know, on cooldown basically at all times. Now, if you are a Paladin main, you know, or just probably just a one-hander user, you know, there is the weapon Golak, I think it's called, where, you know, it has like a proc chance to like increase damage or like, you know, do damage to enemies around you. And this weapon is definitely best in slot, and it is actually recommended to, that's like the first thing you pick up. But honestly, I already had a pretty good weapon, like idle level wise, and my trinkets were the ones that was like really suffering. So I just made the choice to just, you know, get my trinkets. I also just thought that the trinkets sound a little bit more fun. And then I'm gonna pick up the weapon like first thing next week. But going back here to the footage right now, you can actually see that I'm still doing the jump skip here in Azure Vault that the pug group showed me in the very first week. And yeah, I'm absolutely loving this skip, right? You actually, I feel like you're saving a lot of time by like skipping all these ads like in this ring, just also having to like go, not back and forth, but like going up and down and like going all the way around. You know, compared, because then you actually just pick up everything else in the next like couple of rooms, and all those like rooms are like really stacked up with packs, so it's a lot more efficient just to pick up all of them instead of like going this way. And I think I mentioned before, but like this, like the next couple of areas, like this all the way from the second boss all the way to third boss, it's just completely like, you know, chain pulling for me. And as you know me, as I mentioned before, I'm a complete chain pulling whore. Like I am living for it. It's my favorite thing ever, just to like push my team and like force them to go like faster and like stronger. And of course I'm having an eye on my healer's mana, but as you can see, he's playing a Resto Shaman and he's good. He's perfectly fine. But I just love to just be able to just like, you know, run ahead, you know, pull extra. And as you can see here, I tend to like, you know, pull all these areas in like 3 separate pulls. I guess 4 separate pulls. Because, you know, as a tank, there's probably nothing here that can like just straight up kill you, unless you are playing like completely incorrectly, you know, standing your back to the mobs, not pressing anything at all. If you just use the slightest defensive, there's not really much here that can damage you. It is like all the damage is going on your party, so that's why you want to split them up just a little bit, you know. I don't want 3 of these big dragon guys that does the roar and also the charge. I don't want them in a pool, so I'm trying to like, that's the ones I'm actually having an eye on now to make sure that, you know, you split them up. But yeah, I mean, Azure Vault is still definitely one of my favorite dungeons. It might be my favorite dungeon of Brackenhide, which is really funny because aesthetically, I mentioned this before, I think aesthetically it's quite boring because it's just the same color patterns the whole way through. I like some variety in my dungeons, but mechanically and like, you know, pull size and the flow of the dungeon, yeah, I really like Azure Vault. Now the next key we were really struggling on, a 9th Ultimate, and we actually had our like first problem here on the totem boss. And that's just simply because like we just did not have enough damage to like kill these totem mobs before he casted Bloodlust. And I don't really think this is a damage issue because I feel like we were pumping really big. It just really seems like aside of like a scaling issue. But you can see here, there's every single totem just the Bloodlust like going through. And our healer are just like really like pumping here. Looking back at it, we do have good damage, but the problem here is that we have a Demonology Warlock and a Boomkin, which both of them are kind of like ramp up damage and not really that good on the totem boss. But we do actually end up getting him, as well as the 3 dwarves. But the mistake that's gonna put the mage to say GG and then disband the key is actually gonna be my mistake here on the third boss. I was not prepared for this one right here, the cast that I need to stop. I thought I had a few more seconds, but I guess my DPM was like, you know, out of order. So I don't actually move the boss enough, and he gets the cast off, meaning he's gonna do a lot more damage, killing our entire team. I have to like reset the boss, and as it's the mace, he's just gonna say GG. You know, we don't have time enough, which honestly I'm not really sure about. It's gonna be tight, but yeah. Oh well, we go back in the 8. And this time we have a hunter with us, but everyone else just stayed the same. And let me tell you, the difference between an 8 and a 9 was just so magnificent. And like the whole dungeon honestly goes pretty smooth. It's not the fastest run, but it's still really good. Like, you know, we are perfectly fine on timing wise, you know, not in a hurry at all. It's not going to be a free chest, and I guess it's just, you know, it's still like early in the season, people are still getting gear and stuff like that, so I'm completely fine with this. But in this pull right here, an Incorporal's actually going to go off. Unfortunately, I did not see him right there back then, and you know, it's actually going to cost us a wipe. It's really unlucky that the Incorporal didn't spawn, you know, all the way back there, but you know, what can you do? We go up to the final boss here, just about to like just be able to just one chest it, or like lose the 2 chest ability, I guess. And going in here, let me tell you, this boss hurts so incredibly much. Not for me actually. I'm usually fine if you just rotate your defensive for the big breath, then you should be fine. But you can see here, people are like dropping really low, and I guess they just didn't expect him to hit this hard. But you really want to use a defensive of every single time he does the wing ray damage. But we do actually manage to like push through, have a few more deaths, but we have like a bunch of combat reses, so we are perfectly fine. If you're tanking this boss, make sure that you're tanking him all the way over here in the corners, or like, you know, all the way up to the wall, because you want to make sure that your DPSs and healers have as much room as they can have. Because if you get like overrun with swirlies, that's where you're gonna like, you know, and lose a lot of like ground. That's where you're gonna like start panicking, and you're not gonna really know what's gonna come and stuff like that, and that's where you're gonna make a bunch of mistakes. So try to have as much clean area as you can, and this boss is going to be a lot less stressful. Now the next key I did was actually a complete puck group, so I am still, you know, pugging. Just because you have some people and join a Discord doesn't mean that you always have people to play with, so you still have to puck sometimes. And let me tell you, a lot of people fear the elephant, and a lot of people like throw bloodlust. Even myself throw bloodlust on the elephant boss because it's kind of just a habit at this point. But honestly, this chain boss right here is honestly to make it and break it. It's absolutely insane the amount of damage that he's gonna throw on the tank here. You have to really be hurrying to like break these chains, but you also can't like break them too fast, or else, you know, people, the healer is not going to be able to keep up with the like burning damage, you know, the boss actually is going to do here. You can see me struggling breaking the third chain. And if you're playing a DPS, just a little like heads up, it's actually a lot more difficult for the tank to pick it up if everyone else is moving. The best thing you can honestly do is just pick a spot and then just like go really like on the other side of the arena, I guess, so that like chain is really long, but also just a little bit away from the other so you don't stack on one. And then just make the tank, you know, be able to walk through. But I guess also in a park, that's putting a lot of faith in your tank that he knows what to do. So I guess this is one of those like, and this is why like this boss is so difficult, because if you are in a coordinated group, you can really easily make out like who's going where with the chains, and like, you know, when to pop defenses and stuff like that. And here you can't really. You can see here the DPS is just, you know, trying to get like almost instantly the Qs. But what you can see here with the hunter here is, you know, he's making the chain really long, and he is actually moving towards me, but he's not breaking the chain before I'm actually moving the boss into it, which is really great because again, you don't want all 3 stacks on you. But with that, you know, the boss is down. I've really been loving having Divine Shield here just to completely ignore a tank mechanic for like 1 round, and then having all my defensive up for the next one, and then usually you don't really get a 3rd one. This right here is a little bit risky, but it's a really fun. What makes it risky is you need to really hurry up picking up everything to like gather them up. But also you need to like hurry up because people are gonna start DPSing, and as you can see here, I don't really have that much, like I haven't really put that much aggro on them because I'm just hurrying up gathering them. But I do actually manage to keep them up safe because, again, if you are playing a DPS, if you see your tank just running ahead, you know, trying to pick up more, wait with DPSing, wait with also the dots, because if you don't know how much the tank actually put into aggroing, you can end up just having a mob just, you know, completely face rolling you, and the tank is on the other side end of the room. Now, if you were a Season 2 veteran, you do remember how awful this last boss were. There was a bug where these like swirlies that would come on the ground, even though you were not near them, they would still like hit you as if you were close to them, meaning you would just sometimes just instant die. And also, if I remember correctly, her shield used to have so much more health. Oh, you can see here, I got hit by the swirlies by accident, and I almost dropped dead, like, you know, immediately. If I didn't have my kings up, you know, to proc that I have to cheat death kind of thing, I would have been dead right there. So really, like, don't sleep on these like swirlies, don't underestimate them, because they will like annihilate you. But yeah, I actually genuinely really like this boss. It's just with like, I remember season 2 how difficult it was and how brutal it was, that it just wasn't really that much fun. But now with all the nerfs and stuff like that, yeah, I'm really enjoying it. And then the final key on my paladin for this week, so far yet, has simply just been Knockhood offensive. You know, I'm finally going back. I hate this dungeon. it's always a pain. Also a puck run right here. And this time with Knockhood, I'm honestly going boring, but I'm just going safe. Because what I'm doing is I'm just starting off with the patrol. You don't want to start with the groups that are like just standing at the catapults. You want to start with the patrol because they are the ones gonna come, and like, you know, you're just gonna end up pulling extra if you don't. And as you saw in my last video, if you pull extra and you don't commit a bloodlust to it, you will wipe. Now, with like bloodlust, I should probably still actually do that, like pull double packs and then commit a bloodlust, because you don't really need it here on the first boss, and we actually are going to pop bloodlust just a little bit late. And I think this boss right here is the perfect example for why I hate Knockhood, or why I just have not had fun in the dungeon at all. This boss is really not difficult, and it actually honestly has quite simple mechanics. But the problem is, if no one commits a CC to this ad right here, you will wipe. There is no in between. If he gets his cast off and like you don't actually get to fire off the catapults, you will absolutely wipe. And what makes this incredible frustrating for someone like me is, you know, the fact that I'm playing a paladin where I have so much utility and I have an answer for everything. I do have a 6-second stun, which is absolutely incredible, but usually I don't have it up for every single ad. I basically only have it up for every other, meaning that I can take care of everything except for like one ad. So if no one else takes care of that ad, it's just, you know, it's basically just that the pugs have like one job. I will take care of everything else, and then they don't do that job. It's the worst feeling ever. But hey, luckily we get through with like 0 problems at all. Again, maybe use Bloodlust a little bit better because you probably want it up for the second boss. Now we actually do the second boss without Bloodlust. We are actually just raw dogging it. And usually when you're not using Bloodlust means you have to commit a lot more to these orbs, especially the healer really needs to like pump through. I was getting really frustrated with this mage right here because he was just not picking up any orbs at all. Like maybe once or twos. And it just was really frustrating because I couldn't read him. Like I couldn't read what orbs he was picking and what orbs he was just not. You can see here he's like standing on the left. He's just pick up one orb right there. And you can see all these coming, and I can't move out because if I move out, I will get hit by the wind burst. And you can see one going in right there on the boss that I didn't like see. And it just sucks because, you know, one person not like is slacking behind means that everyone else have to like play even like more efficient. And that's honestly better than the other alternative where, you know, one mistake just wipes the whole party. So yeah, even though we have a mage that's a little bit hard to read and doesn't really contribute that much to the orbs, and I don't get why he wouldn't do it because it actually buffs his damage. And I think people just don't know that. I see the same thing where like these orbs just spawn with the different packs around this boss right here. No one picks up the orbs. I'm the only one who's doing it because it just buffs your damage and healing. So please guys, orbs here are incredible. Please pick them up. We're actually gonna end up like, I have a few wipes, but nothing too bad going into this boss. Also like our Shadow Priest died, and also I think it was a mage also died, so we had to use already 2 battle reses, but we hadn't used any of them, so we still have plenty of them here. And then of course I saved my Divine Toll for this pull right here. I didn't use it on pull, I used it when these ads are coming, trying to kick as many things you can see. Again, sorry for calling this mage out, but you can just see his interrupt is just sitting there, and it just grinds my gears, man. I can't lie, it just really does. Oh, and this is really funny. This healer is gonna give me an insane heart attack because, you know, here comes the tank buster, the thing that the healer is supposed to dispel, and I see the cast going off, and I just hit instantly 25% health, and I just type out, "Dispel, dispel, please." And he's in absolute chat because from now on, all of these like tank busters are like dispelled instantly. He could just, you know, missed it. It's totally fine, but it really just like, you know, frightened me when I saw that my health dropping that low. But yeah, I'll be getting through it, and I have to say my goal for this season is right now it's just hitting 20 on every single key. I want the portals. I don't really care much about score, honestly, for this season. But I have to say, Nugget is going to be the last dungeon that I'm ever going to touch. And as soon as I'm done with that, I'm out. Like, I really just can't stand Nugget for some reason. It really just is not for me. Oh, but wait a minute. What's this? This isn't Paladin. This is my MM Hunter. Yeah, I've been actually, it might be my last key on my Paladin, but I actually been really enjoying pushing also as a Hunter on the side. Little fun fact about me is that before tanking, before anything, I was a Hunter main. Like, Hunter is like, iconic for me, especially MM Hunter. I've absolutely loved it. I started maining Hunter back in Mr. Pandaria, and then all the way up until Legion, I believe. And I played Hunter for many years, and don't get fooled by the damage meters, because it's so scuffed on an MM Hunter, and that's basically why I'm enjoying it so much. Basically what MM Hunter is, like, it's kind of cheating in lower keys, because you have such an incredible burst. It's basically what made me fall in love with MM Hunter. That you are doing all the damage that you can to the ads. Like, the ads are gonna die as soon as you're done with your burst. In practical terms, meaning that the amount of damage that you as a group can do to these ads before they die, you're basically gonna do like 60 or 70% of that if you're using True Shot and Volley, right? And as soon as you push up into higher and higher content, and the packs are gonna like live more and more, MM Hunter's damage is gonna fall off. If the pack can basically survive your burst, you are gonna do a lot less overall damage, because in between the bursts, it's not really. You have your volley like kind of moments there every 45 seconds, but just on your own, just you only using multi-shot and aim shot, it's not really gonna be that good compared to all the other classes. And funny enough, being an old Hunter main, Hunter is always the class that's gonna like annoy me the most if people are not utilizing it properly, or I guess just towards full potential. I get that Hunter is like lacking this like overall rate damage, but we actually do have a rate buff now, which is kind of meh, especially in Mythic Plus. And rate is pretty good. It's the Hunter's Mark, where you do increase damage to targets above. Is it 80% or 90%? I think it's 80%. You do, which is a fair amount of like raid bosses, but in Mythic Plus, when it's not a boss, it's kind of just whatever. But the actual amount of utility you have a Hunter and how you can help out, it's mostly helping out the tank, to be honest, with especially Binding Shot. Binding Shot is my, pet peeve when I see Hunters not using it. It's incredible. Like, giving your tank a breathing room. I remember back in Shadowlands when Necrotic was still a thing, I would use this all the time, and it saved my tank so many times. And I just always got annoyed when I was playing a tank at the opposite, and I just saw a Hunter where I clearly was trying to kite away, of trying to survive, and the Hunter was just sitting on the binding shot. It always, it just really grinds my gears. The same way that you can use Freezing Trap to stop a cast. It's a little bit gimmicky, but if you know the cast is coming, you can definitely absolutely time it. And I feel like that's the thing that I kind of fell in love with the Hunter. The rotation is kind of simple on all the specs, but that just opens up to so much more brain power that you can spend on the utility. And that's the thing that most, I'm sorry for calling Hunter mains out, right? But from pugging experience, most Hunters are just not really using the utility for its full potential, which is always really sad, because I really think the Hunter has some great stuff here. Very niche, not very that universal, right? You can't just use a Freezing Trap for every single cast, as I mentioned before. Binding Shot is not always that useful, because for 90% of the time, sure, the tank should be just fine tanking it. But for that 10% where you can use it, it is probably one of the best utilities, some of the best utilities in the game. But I'm not just bringing this up to tell you how great the MM Hunter is. I'm actually also just bringing up this point of if you want to improve as a tank, how important it is for you to actually play other roles and see how the game looks like from that perspective. Now, if you are actually in comms with the people you're playing with and you can talk to them, this is less important, because then you can just ask them straight up what makes sense and what doesn't make sense, and also just general, when you're pulling, what feels great for them and what doesn't feel great for them, right? Where can you work on it? There's gonna be times where you as a tank, if you're completely alone and you're like, you know, isolated from everyone else and they're not really talking to you, you can have like pulls that you think are perfectly fine, but can be completely overwhelming for DPSs. Or you can have pulls where you think, oh, you know, I can barely survive this, or, you know, I don't want to pull Dexter, but for DPSs, like, it would just be so much more beneficial for their cooldowns if you went really big here. And that's something I think is really difficult to pick up on if you're just playing completely on your own and just only playing tank. So if you are, one of my biggest advices for you to improve is actually just to play as a different role. Not only are you gonna get the perspective of what makes a good dungeon run for those roles, but you also get a like other view on like how other people are tanking dungeons, where you can actually really learn something. And not only just, you know, when people are like the tank is like doing something really great, but also just when he's not. Like, if you pick up on stuff like, oh, this is like really awkward, like why would he go like that? You kind of just get the feeling of like, you know, what you should do and what you definitely shouldn't do from playing with, like, watching other people's gameplay. And you can do that by, you know, watching a stream or watching YouTube content, but you can also just go into the game and play an alt as a DPS or healer, and you'll get the same perspective. But yeah, that's basically been my week so far. I've been focused on gearing up my paladin. I think he's like at like 509 now. I also crafted a shield. I got my bullion's trinket. I get my weapon next week. I have my 4 set. Yeah, I'm just gonna start pushing into the 20s now, and then also just spend the rest of the week just playing my hunter, playing also a little bit of evoker, which is really great. Really enjoying augmentation, and yeah, just honestly having a casual, fun time with the game. And yeah, so I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope you guys take care, and I'll see you in the next one. Okay, everyone, bye.